Gentlemen, good morning. All right. Are we ready to proceed with your next witness?
Yes, sir. The plaintiff should call Donna Harris, Your Honor.
And stand and raise your right hand and be sworn. You solemnly swear affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Please.
Ma'am, would you state your full name and spell your last name for the court reporter?
It's Donna Walczak, W-A-L-C-Z-A-K.
And at one time, were you known as Donna Harris?
Up until May of 2010.
That time you married Tim Walczak.
That's correct.
At one time, did you work at with Tim and Andy at their business, the fireworks business?
It's approximately 2002 and 2003.
Give us a little bit of background. You have graduated from high school?
Yes, I worked for the South Shore Railroad for about 14 years, worked full-time, went to Indiana University part-time, got my 4-year degree in accounting, sat for the CPA exam, passed that, and I currently work for the state of California. I do corporate tax audits for the Fortune 500 companies throughout the Midwest.
And where's your location of work now? Where do you go to work?
My primary headquarters is near the Sears Tower, at Willis Tower now.
I can't hear her.
Would you repeat that again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. If you
I work it's near the Willis Tower, or the old Sears Tower.
I want to direct your attention to 2002, 2003, when you were working with Tim and Andy at Planet Fireworks, or actually working for them. At that time, did you have responsibilities for taking inventory and keeping track of products that were ordered and sold?
That's correct. I was in charge of the accounting processes.
Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, did you become aware that there was going to be a sale of the product from one or both of the stores that were owned by, or that were the stores that were leased and the businesses that were located in Valparaiso and Maryville?
That's correct. They informed me that they were going to be selling the product.
And there were two stores at that time?
Yes, Valparaiso and Maryville.
Which had the higher stored products and the higher volume of products sold between those two?
I'm thinking they were very similar. They both had quite a bit of product in each location.
All right, so the information came to you from what source concerning this sale of product?
Typically, I would chat with either Tim or Andy, and they would keep me updated on what needed to be done.
And what did they tell you in regard to the sale of product?
There was some discussion that they had met with Tom Connor and that he was going to go ahead and buy the inventory from the stores. We were going to start with the Valparaiso location and then determine if he wanted to buy the Maryville location.
Did you know Mr. O'Connor?
I had met him. I knew of him. I had seen him before, but not very well.
And did Mr. O'Connor, what the procedure do you recall you went through with regard to taking the stocked items and getting them ready for sale?
I'm going to start with what I initially did as part of receiving our product from our vendor. Typically what would happen is we would have an invoice come from a vendor. I would take that invoice and I would summarize those costs into a spreadsheet because we need to determine what we would sell the product for. So all the product that we received, I had fed into a spreadsheet to analyze what the cost would be per product, so then we could determine what we'd sell that product for.
Now, with regard to this sale to Mr. O'Connor, did you do anything in preparation for the sale, or either the loading of the goods, or keeping track of the goods, or the pricing of the goods that were going to be purchased by Mr. O'Connor?
As I said, because when we received the product, we needed to determine what we would sell it for. I had already set up the initial spreadsheets. So once we said we were going to sell the product to Tom O'Connor, we had to put a system in place that we could rely on and determine what those sales to Mr. O'Connor would be. We had specific cases of product on the shelves. We also had product that was set up on the shelf so the customers could come in and buy that product.
So you had cases, you're talking about boxes?
A complete case that we received from the vendor when we purchased it.
Those were unopened.
That were unopened.
Then you also had product on the shelves.
Right, because with a store, you have customers coming in, they want to see the product, they may buy only just one, they won't buy the whole case necessarily.
So what was the system that you recall was set up to keep track of what was going to be delivered and charged to Mr. O'Connor?
We determined that what we needed to do was, I made the decision, we have to do a physical inventory. You can't just, we weren't computerized in the sense that we knew every single item, but I knew exactly what we received from the vendor, and so I said we have to count each product item that we're going to sell so I can make that invoice up correctly.
Now, did there come a time that there was the day of moving or the time of moving from product from one location to Mr. O'Connor's Boomtown location?
The decision was to start with the Valparaiso location, so the store was closed, and what we did was we started inventorying, manually counting how much product we had on the shelves, how many cases of the product we had. So we would take that product and count it out, each piece we'd count it. We'd keep a record of how many pieces we had. We'd load those into like a cart. In that cart, we would identify what was in there, the name of the product, how many. Because typically when you're doing business, you're going to, if you're ordering something from anywhere, the normal reaction is, did I receive everything I ordered? Because you want to know that before you pay it. So I wanted to make sure we had an accurate count of what we were putting in those carts. So when I made up my invoice, I knew, here's how many of these items we actually shipped to the Tom's location. So we counted those items up so I could then tally up the exact total of what was provided to him. And my assumption would be, on the other end, when he received that product, typically when you're the one buying, you're going to count that product and make sure you're receiving what you want to know how much product you received before you pay for it.
In this procedure, how did you identify or inform Mr. O'Connor of what he was receiving in those carts?
For us, what we did, because just like a customer, you're going to come in, you're going to have a cart, the easiest way to transport the product that was on the shelves was to load it into a cart. So we would count everything that went into the cart. We'd identify it on the handle, we would tape on there a Post-it note saying, this is the product, this is the total number of count. So then what I did is I'd oversee that we wrote down every single cart, every single case that we were going to be shipping over there. So we had an accurate count and could total up the total product that was given to him.
So you were keeping track at the store location of what was being put in the carts, but you say there was a Post-it note and that identified for that particular cart what was in the cart.
That's correct.
Were there boxes, there were unopened boxes that were also transported, I take it?
Yes.
Do you know how those were transported? Were they put in carts, put in on a dolly?
Typically with a case, they were easy to transport. Unlike a loose item, you've got so many of them, that's why those went into the carts. The cases, I believe, they rolled out in dolly carts.
How long did this, were you there at the time the actual moving was going on?
Yes.
Who else was there?
We had several employees that we paid to help with accounting. I know we had like Mike Honeycutt, who was an employee that we had worked with for quite a while. He's currently a cop and he moved down to Tennessee. Artie Insaraga is another employee that we've worked with for quite a number of years. Ian Mathers, he came to us just for that seasonal work. And I think there might, and that's what I remember right off.
Employees. You were there?
And I was there, Tim was there, Andy was there at times as well.
All right. How long in your recollection, did the move take from, you started at the Valparaiso store, I'm sorry.
Correct, that's correct.
And how long did that take?
To the best of my recollection, it was a couple of days. There was quite a bit of product that we needed to count, so it takes time to count and pull it off the shelf and then shuffle it off to the location that needed to go.
How was the system that you had set up or the procedure set up for moving the product from the location of your store to Boomtown, Mr. O'Connor's store? How did you get it from one location to the other?
Well, as I said, by the cases, he had a trailer. I think is that what you mean? He had a trailer where he transported the product. Rolled out the dolly carts with the cases. load the carts into the trailer to transport them.
Now, before this move took place, did Mr. O'Connor ever visit your store?
I do remember him stopping by one time. It wasn't a particularly busy day. Typically, when I was at the store, I would have a cashier who would take care of ringing up the customer. I would try and walk around and see, hey, do you need any help with anything? Help them identify what kind of product they might be looking for. So I remember him stopping in. He walked through the store, just kind of looking at the inventory. Probably just made normal chit-chat, but...
And that was before the...
That was before we closed the stores, yes.
And the other store was the Maryville store?
Yes.
And those both were closed in the same time period, whatever it was?
Within a few weeks of each other, I want to say.
When did you give him, when did you prepare a list of pricing for Mr. O'Connor?
I had the pricing list prepared so we could sell the product initially, and then when I was told by Tim or Andy that they were going to sell product to town, then they gave me, I think they initially sold some stuff out of the warehouse, so I put together that cost, prepared the invoice.
How did you get the prices that were going to be charged to Mr. O'Connor?
Initially, when we receive the product from the vendor, you get an invoice. That invoice tells you how much of the product you receive. You take that total cost, you divide by the number of products you get. Then there's freight costs that, nothing's free, you have to pay for it to be shipped to you. So you take those freight costs and you allocate those across the product that you receive. So that initially I had done when we bought the product. So when we sold it to Tom, my understanding was we're selling it to him at cost plus the freight. So all I had to do was identify how much he would actually be receiving from us.
So you were taking your hand-counted numbers and then comparing the price that you paid for them, and that's how you established a inventory for billing purposes.
Yes, that's correct.
I want you to turn to Exhibit F then. I'm sorry.
So I need to get glasses on. Okay, which book am I looking at?
Book.
Yes, it's the plaintiff's book, and that would be the black one.
Okay.
It's the plaintiff's exhibit book. It's E and F, if you could look at those.
Okay.
You recognize E and F.
These are the two invoices that I prepared for the product that was delivered to Tom.
And the listing on the left-hand side of those was, that's the name of the product, I take, and those were 5 different types of fireworks.
Yes, as you can see, there's a total number of cases that we delivered, and we've identified what type of case was delivered, so you know what the product was, and then the way it was packed in the casing, and also the cost per case. So typically, whenever somebody would receive something that they bought, they can go down and say, yes, I received 2 cases, here's the price that I'm being charged. So you would verify that this is the product that you were receiving before you pay an invoice. So that invoice was prepared to be delivered to him so he could make the payment.
Did he ever contact you or anyone that you know of on your end of, or at the stores in either Maryville or Belleville to question any of these listed products on this, either one of these invoices?
No, he did not. As a matter of fact, I know I actually went with Tim a couple of times to...
I'm going to get to that. I'm delivering an invoice. But I just want to know, just the answer is what? That did he ever contact you about the way this invoice was laid out or any objections to you receiving any product?
No.
Now, this followed these documents were created from the hand counting that you made, and then you compared the cost per case from the invoices you got from the manufacturer. Is that, or
That's
excuse me, the jobber or the manufacturer?
Right, the manufacturer, yes.
And now let's get into the inventory then. I take it you did not physically go to either Valparaiso or the Maryville store to actually cart the the materials to Mr. O'Connor's store. Is that correct?
Typically, I would stay at the store because I wanted to work with the employees to make sure we got an accurate count. So as we're putting the Post-it notes on the carts for the count, I'm also keeping a running ledger of how much product we are shipping out the door.
You know what's happening then during these 1 or 2 days that this is going on is Tim coming back and forth, or how does that work, as you recall?
We would count the product. As soon as we had enough to load his trailer, he would transport it to Tom's location. He'd drop that off. We'd still continue to count. He'd come back, pick up another load, and we did that until the store was emptied out.
And that was both stores where that occurred?
That's correct.
All right, let's go to the invoices then. Did you have occasion to take the invoice and deliver it, or assist in delivering the invoice to Mr. O'Connor?
Yes, I prepared
Where was that?
I prepared the invoices, and after we were done and the invoice was finalized as to the total count that we had delivered, I know Tim was going over there to take those invoices. We wanted to give him a copy of it. And generally, it's like, do you want me to take a ride along? And I said, yes, I'll go along with. Because primarily, I wanted to find out, hey, here's the invoices. I prepared them. Is there any questions? Anything I'm not sure about? Kind of give them an opportunity to open that discussion up when we deliver those invoices.
And how long after the delivery of the, let me take it back, when was the delivery of the product? What month and what year, do you recall?
I want to say we may have started sometime around the end of July 2003 for, I'm talking the LakeCo and the Maryville locations. We started those, the manual inventory process around the end of July, went into August.
And when was the visit with Mr. O'Connor where you met with him to deliver the invoice?
It would have been sometime after we finalized the count on the store.
Was that in the same month?
About mid-August.
Tell us what happened when you got there. Tell us what you did with regard to going to the store, who was with you, and what was said.
I remember it was Tim and myself. We were going to stop by the store and drop off the paperwork. I think Tom was there. I want to say Brian was there as well, getting the invoices.
Brian, that's the employee for Mr. O'Connor.
Yes, Mr. Connor's employee. And I don't remember the specifics. There was some conversation. Nothing was said about the invoices. I think he quickly looked at them. I don't remember him going through it line by line, but he had received them. Tom and Tim talked a little bit, and then we left. I think he also, he was showing us his store. Hadn't really seen the store. He had rebuilt it after the fire. Kind of showed us where he had a living area there as well. So really it was just it was a friendly visit. Here's where the product's at. Here's my store. Here's the layout.
Now, did there come a time where you ever visited Mr. O'Connor again on the subject of the invoice? Do you recall?
I remember Tim, I thought, had said to me that Tom didn't have the invoice or couldn't find the invoices, something to that effect, which I knew I'd already given him a copy of it, so printed them out again. He took another ride over there to take those invoices to him.
In that interim, had payments been made on this account?
I'd have to look at, I know I kept track of the invoices and the payments, so I'd have to look at when the payments were
If you
made.
would, in the plaintiff's exhibit book, that's the black one, if you look at exhibit number H, or letter H, if you just, to refresh your recollection, just lead through H1 through 4, actually 1 through 5, then I'll just ask you a question on it. So you're at H, and then there will be a series of tab marks of 1 through 5.
Yeah, on the first one.
Why don't you just look at them all, and then I'll ask you a question. And
Okay.
Okay? Who prepared these documents?
I did.
And then I think I started this off with the question of before you had a second visit with Mr. O'Connor with the invoices, had there been any payments made by him on the amounts owed?
I'm showing according to the records that the first payment that we received from him was August 2003. So our visit to him, I don't know if that payment was made before we visited or shortly thereafter. I would think he would have made the payment shortly thereafter, but according to the records I have here, it shows August 2003. That's about the time we took those invoices over to him. He would have had his first invoice at that point, and we were taking the second invoice.
That's in H1. All right. Then did there come a time then before you had the second? Well, let's start with this. When was the second visit with Mr. O'Connor?
I want to say we went the first time I would have went was shortly after we closed the store, so that was in August 2003. The next time I can recall, I would have thought it would have been that spring. You know, I think he typically goes to Florida for the winter.
So it's been spring 2004?
Spring 2004, he's coming back from Florida. We stopped by, gave him another copy of the invoices
And
the statements.
right. And tell us about that visit. First of all, why were you visiting him again?
To deliver the invoices.
But why was that, since you'd already given him one?
Just as a follow-up, I mean, part of the thing, this would have been several months later, and Tim was then at that point working with Tom to figure out the payment process. So I let him handle that process.
At that point in time, before the second visit, how much is owed by Mr. O'Connor, as shown in these records?
Well, according to the records, the second payment we received was August 2004, so at that point he'd only made that first initial $5,000 payment.
In 2003 or 2004?
In 2003, because I think we stopped before the fireworks season, 2004, so he would have only made the first payment at that point.
All right, so was a payment then made for $5,000 in 2004 as well?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, so tell us about the visit. Where did it take place? And
We went to the store. I remember, I don't know Tom that well, so typically Tim and Tom would have the conversation. I'm sure he transported provided the invoice, said to him, they probably discussed how much was owed.
well, no problem. Just what you heard. Just what you heard and saw. That's all.
I know Tim handed him the invoice, for sure.
All right, so at that time, did you hear Mr. O'Connor make any inquiries to you or to Tim about the product that was delivered the year before?
There was never anything said to me personally from Tim or Andy that there was a trouble with the count. There was nothing said that, hey, the count was inaccurate, there was any problems with the product, there was any problems with the invoices. There was no communication on any of those.
I'm asking now for Mr. O'Connor.
From Mr. O'Connor.
How about the first time within the 2 weeks? Was there any comment by Mr. O'Connor?
No, while I was at the store both times, I don't recall him saying anything about there being issues. Tim and Andy never said that Tim or Tom had said to them there were any issues.
I might have just a moment, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
All right. Cross-examination, Mr. Delans.
One moment, Your Honor. Good morning.
Hi.
May I call you Donna?
Yes.
Donna, when you started your examination, you had indicated that you were working in the store in 2002, 2003.
That's correct.
When did you become an accountant?
I received my CPA license in 1998. I actually worked in accounting for the South Shore Railroad since about 1988. 98 I received my license, I'm sorry. I worked in accounting since 1988.
Did you do any accounting work for Andy James or Tim Walczak?
For the fireworks store, I did.
For this fireworks store?
Yes. For Andy James, his business, no.
And nothing for Mad Bomber?
No.
Okay, nothing for his public display operations?
I helped him with his public displays, but I don't do the accounting for Andy.
When you were working in the 2002-2003 era for Planet Firework, were you hired as an accountant or were you hired as part of the employee sales staff?
I was hired, what I did was actually the accounting work. I supervised the sales staff. So I set up the procedures for cash registers, accounting for all the products sold, making sure there's proper cash management in place. I had done that as part of my job for the railroad, so I was familiar with that type of work.
Fair to say you were in a supervisory role?
Yes,
Okay. I understand you are currently married to Tim Walczak,
that's correct.
and when did the two of you start dating?
I met him in '95.
Were the two of you dating in the 2002-2003 time frame?
That's correct.
Okay. And then you eventually got married?
Yes.
Is it true that Planet Fireworks started doing business in May of 2002?
I believe that's correct.
And product was ordered?
Yes.
And did you order any of that product?
I did not order it. That would have been either Tim or Andy ordering product.
So you're not familiar with the retail aspects of fireworks?
Not the retail aspects. I simply would take the invoice and determine the price of the product.
I understand that, but you're not familiar with how the product is, how the consumers will purchase this product. Your aspects were to take the inventory, count it, and figure a cost basis for this product.
That was part of my duties, yes.
Okay. As the accountant in doing the work for Planet Fireworks, was there a contract generated regarding a transaction between Tom O'Connor, Tim Walczak, and Andrew James?
Typically, when you buy something, you'll issue a purchase order. There was no purchase order from Boomtown. There was no written contract either.
Okay, so the answer then is there was no contract, correct?
It depends on your definition of a contract. A verbal contract, I think it's defined a little differently.
Ma'am, I'm asking you, was there a written contract?
If you're asking written, no.
Okay, thank you. No written contract between Tom O'Connor and Planet Fireworks, correct?
No written.
Okay, now, when the store would receive product, I'm referring to Planet Fireworks, would the store receive a bill of lading or a packaging slip with the product?
Yes, they would.
And is this a packaging slip that would be important to you in receiving this product?
That I don't use the packing slip except to verify freight. The invoice is the important part.
Okay. Did you receive an invoice with the product that was delivered to Planet Fireworks?
Yes.
And would you utilize that invoice to check off to determine whether or not product was actually delivered?
I would verify that we received the product that we're invoiced for.
And if the product that was on the invoice was not delivered, would there be a cause for protest?
Yes, there would.
And did there come times when product was delivered to Planet Fireworks that was on the invoice but not delivered?
We did not have that issue.
Okay. Let me bring you to exhibit. In the black book, Exhibit G. And look at G1 in the black book. Are you there?
I'm looking at it, yes.
Okay. On the delivery from Jake's Fireworks, dated 5/11/2002, was China Cracker 12/80-16 part of this shipment?
Are you looking at a specific page that I should...
Page 1, ma'am.
Page 1. shows 0 being received,
Okay.
or invoiced at least.
Okay. So the invoice shows that that was not on this delivery, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the invoice is important to determine whether or not the product was in fact delivered, correct?
It's very helpful.
Would you pay for a product that's on the invoice that was not delivered?
No, I would not.
I'm going to take your attention to Exhibit E in the black book. You testified during direct examination that this document was created so that it could be utilized to check off the product as it was being delivered. Is that correct?
What I said was this, what I took was the invoice from our vendors, created a spreadsheet to determine how much we received so we could price it. Then this invoice was used to determine how much was delivered to Tom, total of that cost.
And when was this invoice created?
There's no date on this invoice currently, so I don't recall the exact time period. I know according to the top of the invoice, it says it was delivered prior to the fireworks season, July 2003 fireworks season, so it would have been prior to that.
There's no date on this invoice, is there?
No, there's not.
Okay, I want you to take a look at Exhibit G in the black book. I'm sorry, Exhibit F in the black book. Is there a date when that invoice was created?
No, there's no date on this one either.
Taking you to Exhibit H. Are there dates on those invoices?
These are statements, they're not actually invoices.
All right, on these
There are
statements, there are dates.
Yes,
And did you create Exhibit H?
yes.
Okay. And you thought it was important to put a date on it?
We were trying to keep track of the balance due, so I on the statement, yes, I made sure the dates were on there.
And
What was paid.
you did not feel it was important to put a date on Exhibits E and F?
I think the relevant information was the total product and the total cost.
When was Exhibit E delivered to Tom O'Connor?
Because there's no date on here, I can't confirm the exact time.
Is it safe to assume that it was not given to Tom O'Connor when the product was delivered to him contemporaneously?
It's safe to assume that, yes.
Okay. So this inventory sheet, Exhibit E, was not delivered with the product when it was delivered to Tom O'Connor. Correct?
I don't recall it being delivered with the
Okay.
product.
Exhibit F. When was that document created?
That would have been created when the stores were finally empty and we had a total count on the inventory that was provided.
Was this exhibit contemporaneously delivered to Tom when the product was delivered to him?
It wouldn't have been possible to do that.
Would not.
It would not have been possible. You had to count the product.
Exhibit G. Were there come points in time when product was shipped by a truck to your facility?
Yes, we received product by truck.
And after the product was delivered and checked off, would there be documents signed accepting that delivery?
You typically don't sign it. The truck driver won't wait for you to do that. It's your responsibility to inventory the product that you're receiving and verify that you received it. Then you would take that up with your vendor.
So you don't sign the manifest saying that you've accepted the delivery?
You might sign the bill of lading saying it was delivered, but you don't count the product at the time of delivery. The truck driver will not wait for you to verify that product.
So it's your testimony here today that you're going to accept a shipment and not know what you're accepting from the freight company.
That is not what I'm testifying to. I am saying that when the product is delivered, it is your responsibility to verify what you receive and take that issue up with your vendor.
So your testimony is that you do not verify the count before the driver leaves?
Before the driver leaves, I don't think there's time to do that. I don't remember us ever having that time.
Exhibit H. You show a payment of August of 2003. Do you reflect the statement in 2003 being issued to Tom O'Connor?
It's not here as an exhibit.
Okay. Do you have an ownership interest in Planet Fireworks?
No, I do not.
Does your husband now, your fiancé then, I assume, did he have an ownership interest in it?
Yes, he did.
Is it a good business practice, ma'am, as an accountant? Is it a good business practice that when product is delivered, that it be acknowledged upon delivery?
Can you describe what you mean by acknowledge? Are you talking just signing off on a form? Or are you
Yes.
talking counting product?
Acknowledge the product that's being received.
I think it's typical to acknowledge a product is received, yes.
You were testifying that when the Valparaiso store closed, and is it safe to assume that it was after the July 4th, 2003 selling season?
That's what I recall, yes.
Okay. And we took product off the shelf, is that correct?
Yes.
Was the product that was taken off the shelf out of its cases?
Some of it. There were still some cases on the shelves behind the open products.
All right. But there was also loose product on the shelves, correct?
Yes.
And were these products priced as to what they should be sold for?
Not individually. I believe we just identified on the shelving units, as you see in a grocery store, the price of that product.
And is it safe to assume that Tim Walczak went to Boomtown and received grocery carts to transport this product?
I do know we use grocery carts. We had some of our own. I do believe he got some from Boomtown as well.
Okay. And was the product taken off the shelf and placed in the shopping cart?
Yes.
Were you present for any of the negotiations between Tim, Andy, and Tom O'Connor regarding this transaction?
No.
Nothing further.
Redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mrs. Walczak, I'm going to refer you to the cross-examination on the issue of what your practices were in the fireworks business when drivers would drop off the product. You had said that sometimes it would be too busy, it would be impossible to count all of the product. Do you recall that?
Typically, they would bring it by the pallet load, so they would offload the pallets and drop it into the store. So at the time he's delivering that product, you would count it immediately.
And you would then get a bill for that at some time after the delivery?
That's correct.
And that's at the time you would be able to compare what you got for what they're billing you?
That would be standard practice.
Would it surprise you at all that's the exact practice that Mr. O'Connor used?
I would expect as much.
In fact, Mr. O'Connor, in a deposition, and I'm going to quote from the deposition.
Your Honor, may I object and approach?
All right, good.